My 17-year-old daughter was banned from my sister's wedding for being too young. I didn't argue. I just said, we won't be attending. But when Christmas came, I made one quiet change, and the entire family lost it. My name is Claire, and I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. Growing up, that meant I was the responsible one. The helper, the babysitter, the one who handled things when our parents were too tired or too distracted. I never really minded. Not at first. That's just how it was. Tessa was the middle child, the performer, the attention magnet. Rachel, the youngest, was the baby. He got away with everything. I was the one who cleaned up after everyone else. When I got older and became a mom myself, things changed a little, but not really. I adopted my daughter, Maya, when she was 3 years old. She had these big, serious eyes and this quiet way of observing the world, like she didn't trust it yet. I remember the first time she called me Mom. I cried in the car after I dropped her off at preschool. From the very beginning, I made a promise to her. She would never feel unwanted in my family. Not ever again. But I couldn't keep that promise no matter how hard I tried. Tessa got engaged last spring. Big announcement, big ring, big Instagram caption. I congratulated her, of course. Maya even made her a card, cut out little wedding bells, and glued them on with too much glitter. Tessa said it was sweet, then left it in the back seat of her car. I found it there 2 weeks later, half crumpled under a Starbucks cup. Still, Maya was excited about the wedding. She started looking at dresses online and asking if she should wear her hair up or down. I could tell she was nervous, but hopeful. She wanted to be included. Then the invitation came in the mail. It was one of those fancy ones, thick paper, gold trim, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly water bill. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Maya was doing homework at the table. The usual stuff: location, dress code, RSVP link, and then I saw it. Adults only, 18 plus, strictly enforced. No kids. I read it twice thinking maybe I missed something, but I didn't. Maya saw my face before I could say anything. She looked up from her notebook and asked, "She doesn't want me there." I said, "It's an 18 plus wedding." She was quiet for a second, then said, "Is it because I'm adopted?" That sentence broke something in me. She said it so calmly, like it was just a fact she'd come to accept. I told her, "No, of course not." But I knew what she meant. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Not exactly this, but other moments, smaller ones, slippery comments. My mom once introduced Maya as Claire's girl, never our granddaughter. Tessa called her your daughter, like she was talking about a neighbor kid. There were times at family holidays when Maya would offer to help in the kitchen and no one would even respond. I tried to believe it was unintentional, that they didn't mean anything by it. But this time was clear. I didn't fight. I didn't yell. I just went online and clicked not attending. No explanation, just no. I thought that would be the end of it. The next day, Tessa texted me, "Hey, just saw your RSVP. Is everything okay?" Then a follow-up. "If this is about the age thing, I hope you understand. We're being super consistent with everyone. Nothing personal, right? Not personal except that Maya is her niece and she's 17, not 7. I didn't answer. Then Rachel messaged me. "Tessa said you're not coming." What? What's going on? Then my mom called. She never calls me just to talk. So I picked up, already bracing myself. "Claire," she said, "I heard you're not going to the wedding. Is this really about the age limit?" I said, "Maya's not invited." "I'm not going without her. She's almost 18 inches. My mom said, "It's not like she's a little kid. She's family." There was a pause. "Don't punish your sister over this. It's one night." I didn't argue. I just said, "We're not going," and hung up. That should have been it. But then came the group chat messages, the guilt, the little comments that weren't even subtle. "Rachel, can't believe you're making such a big deal over one rule. You always have to cause drama. Maya is not the only one not coming. This isn't about her. You're making it about her." My mom sent a long message about family unity and forgiveness, about how we've all made sacrifices, about how it's hard being in the middle. I didn't respond. Maya deleted the dress photos from her phone. She stopped talking about the wedding. She didn't cry, but I think that's what hurt me the most. How unsurprised she was. She'd already learned what I spent too long trying to ignore. So, when Christmas came around and no one had apologized or even brought it up, I made a quiet decision. I didn't invite them. No big announcement, no blow up, just silence. And that's what made them really angry. If you'd asked me 10 years ago what I thought motherhood would look like, I would have said birthday parties, messy hugs, glitter on the carpet. I wouldn't have said trying to protect a child from people who claimed to love you both. When Maya came into my life, she was 3 years old and heartbreakingly serious. Big brown eyes, soft curls, and a quiet stare that made you feel like she was memorizing everything you said just in case she needed to survive you. She didn't warm up quickly. She didn't giggle on cue. She didn't run into my arms like a movie scene. But when she finally reached for my hand in the grocery store without being asked, I cried in the parking lot for 10 minutes. My husband Ethan was the one who said that was the moment she chose you. And I've been choosing her every day since. But my family never quite knew what to do with her. At first I chalked it up to awkwardness. Adjusting, barely. She didn't have my eyes. She didn't carry my last name yet. She didn't jump into conversations at holidays the way the other kids did. But it was more than that. It was the way my mom referred to her as the little one instead of Maya. The way Tessa once asked, "Are you going to tell her she's adopted when she's older?" When Maya was standing right there. The way Rachel's kids got Easter baskets from our parents with personalized names, while Maya got a generic one with a Happy Spring tag. It wasn't overt. It was quieter than that, softer, easier to excuse if you wanted to, but Maya noticed. She always noticed. I tried to be patient. I really did. I explained. I redirected. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. When Maya was 6, she told my dad she wanted to be an artist. He smiled and said, "You'll need something more practical than that." When she was 8, she drew a picture of our family, me, Ethan, and her, and gave it to my mom. My mom smiled, said, "Thank you," then set it down and never mentioned it again. Maya asked later why it wasn't on the fridge like the other cousins' drawings. I didn't know what to say. The first time I really lost my patience was Rachel's engagement party. Maya was 12. Rachel had invited us. Sort of. We were added to a mass text with a time, date, and venue. No, can't wait to see you, no personal message. But we went anyway because I thought this is how we change it. We keep showing up. Maya wore a pale blue dress and these little silver flats she'd picked out herself. She was nervous, kept asking if she looked okay, if she could stay close to me. At the party, Rachel greeted us with a tight smile and a "hi," then turned to hug the next person without asking Maya anything. No compliment. No, "You look so grown up." Just air. We stayed for 20 minutes, maybe 25. Maya stuck to my side the entire time. On the way home, she said, "I don't think she likes me." I said, "She doesn't know you." She said, "She's had 10 years. And I didn't have an answer for that. The thing is, I don't think they ever fully accepted that Maya wasn't temporary. It's like some part of them thought I'd eventually have a real child, and this would become a sweet chapter, something they could refer to as when Claire fostered that little girl. They never said it out loud. They didn't have to. Last year, for Maya's 16th birthday, We rented a space at the community center and decorated it with her artwork. Her idea. She didn't want some big party with loud music. She wanted to hang her paintings, serve cupcakes, and invite the people who'd supported her. She made the invitations herself, sent them out to family, friends, and a few teachers. Rachel didn't come. Neither did Tessa. My parents showed up 30 minutes late and brought a card that said, "To a sweet girl," with a $20 bill tucked inside. Maya thanked them. She's always polite. Afterward, she didn't say much, just helped clean up, put her canvases back in the car. But later that night, when we were home and the dishes were done, I found one of her sketches. It was a drawing of the three of us, her, me, and Ethan, at the party. But our faces were blank. I think that's when I stopped hoping they'd change. Not because of the card or the late arrival or the lack of effort, but because it didn't even hurt Maya anymore. Not in the same way. She'd stopped being surprised. And that scared me more than anything. So, when the wedding invitation never came, not even a phone call or a conversation, just a silent exclusion, I knew what I had to do. I didn't argue. I didn't plead or ask for an exception. I just told Maya we weren't going. She didn't cry. She just nodded and said, "Okay." Later that night, she asked, "Do you think they even noticed we weren't there?" I said, "Yes," because I needed her to believe she mattered, even if they didn't. We spent the weekend of the wedding at home. Ethan made French toast. Maya painted in the sunroom. I read a book from cover to cover. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a protest. It was peace. And honestly, it felt strange at first. Quiet in a way that made you realize how much noise you'd been living with for years. I didn't miss the ceremony. I didn't wonder what the flowers looked like or whether the cake tasted good. I thought about Maya. I thought about how she used to look for their approval in every comment, every holiday, every family dinner, and how little by little they taught her not to expect it. And I thought about the next holiday, how for years I'd hosted Christmas out of obligation, inviting them, feeding them, pretending their half-hearted smiles were enough. This time I wouldn't. This time I'd do something different. Ethan asked me in early December, "Should I order the usual folding chairs?" I shook my head. "No extra seats this year." He didn't push. Maya didn't ask. And when the group chat started buzzing with, "Who's bringing dessert to Claire's this year?" and "Should we come the night before like always?" I said nothing. I just watched the messages pile up unread. I didn't announce that I wasn't hosting Christmas. I didn't make a speech or post a bold status or tell everyone to go find somewhere else to eat their ham and passive aggression. I just didn't say anything. And that silence apparently was the loudest thing I'd ever done. The group chat started buzzing around December 15th. Rachel: "Claire, are we still doing Christmas Eve dinner at your place? Let me know what I should bring." Tessa: "Of course, we'll be 5 again." Let me know if Maya wants anything specific this year. If she's even going to be there this time. That one almost got me. If she's even going to be there this time. Like Maya was the problem. Like her absence from their wedding was a personal failing of hers, not the result of being uninvited. I didn't reply. For the first time in years, I didn't clean the house top to bottom. I didn't pre-order a roast. I didn't dig out the extra folding chairs. I didn't drag the big table leaf out of the garage. And when no one got an answer, they started calling. First it was my mom. I let it ring. Then Rachel. Then Tessa. Then my dad left a voicemail. "Claire, we just want to know what's going on." Your mother's upset. It's not too late to do the right thing. The right thing, as if hosting people who excluded my daughter was the right thing, as if feeding them would fix what they refused to acknowledge. We didn't host anyone that year. Instead, Ethan and I made lasagna in pajamas while Maya baked sugar cookies in shapes that barely held together. We stayed in, watched movies, opened our gifts early. We laughed more than we had in months. It felt normal in a way our holidays never had before. No one walked on eggshells. No one had to translate pointed comments. No one got quiet when Maya entered the room. It was just us. And that's when the messages started to change. December 26th, Tessa in the group chat. I just think it's sad. We've all tried to welcome Maya, but Claire has made it impossible to connect with her. Rachel. I mean, if you cut off family every time there's a disagreement, you'll end up with no one. Dad. The way you're handling this is cruel. I'm sorry, but it is. My mom sent me a photo of the Christmas tree at their house with the caption, "It wasn't the same without you." Maya would have loved her gifts. I didn't reply because they weren't gifts for Maya. They were guilt-wrapped invitations to come back and pretend everything was fine, and I'd done that for too long. A few days later, we got a card in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Inside, my mother had written, "I wish you'd think about the example you're setting. Maya will see how easily you shut people out." That line stuck with me because I realized that's exactly what I want her to see. Not that love is disposable, but that love, real love, doesn't ask you to shrink yourself. It doesn't ask you to sit quietly while the people around you pretend your pain is too uncomfortable to acknowledge. Maya didn't ask about the messages, but I know she saw the tension. She's never been one to ask directly. She just watches, absorbs, like she's still trying to figure out which parts of the world are safe. One night, she was curled up on the couch with a blanket over her legs, sketching something. She paused, then said, "If I wasn't adopted, do you think they'd like me more?" The question hit harder than any of the texts. I sat down beside her. "Sweetheart," I said, "they'd probably pretend better, but the way they treat people who aren't like them, that was never about you." She looked at me with those same serious eyes from the day I met her and said, "I don't think I want them to like me anymore." And that was the moment I stopped waiting for an apology. A few days later, my father called again. I let it ring. Then he texted, "Your mother's not sleeping. She feels like she's lost you. We know we messed up, but that doesn't justify shutting everyone out. That's not who you are." I stared at that line for a long time. That's not who you are. I used to wonder about that. Used to question whether I was being too cold, too sensitive, too harsh. But now I think this is who I am. Someone who finally knows what she will and won't tolerate. Someone who knows that keeping peace at the expense of your child's dignity isn't noble. It's cowardice dressed up as tradition. The final straw came from Tessa. She sent a voice memo. One of those rambling ones where people try to sound calm, but every sentence has a knife tucked inside. "I just think it's sad, Claire. You always made such a big deal about how much you love Maya, but now it feels like you're using her as a shield. Like anytime someone doesn't treat her like royalty, you cut them out. That's not healthy. That's not parenting. That's obsession." I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted the message and blocked her number. Because if loving Maya fiercely, completely is seen as obsession in their world, then yes, I am obsessed. I'm wildly, unapologetically obsessed with protecting the person who needed me the most, and nothing they say will make me regret that. New Year's came and went quietly. Maya fell asleep before midnight with a half-eaten cookie on the couch. Ethan and I toasted with tea instead of champagne and watched fireworks on mute. He looked at me and said, "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I miss the idea of them, but that version never really existed." He nodded, didn't say anything more, just reached for my hand. "I don't know what will happen next. I'm sure they'll keep trying. People like that don't go quietly. There will be more texts, more posts. Maybe one of them will show up at Maya's graduation next year acting like nothing happened. But I've made my decision. There's no big showdown coming. Just quiet distance. And sometimes that's the most powerful choice of all. It happened on a Thursday. Cold, overcast, quiet. I had just come home from work, still in my coat, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan was working late. Maya was upstairs preparing a portfolio project for her college applications. I opened the door, and there they were, my parents, standing on my porch like it was still 2007 and we were pretending nothing ever went wrong. My mom had a Tupperware container in her hands. I think they were oatmeal cookies, her specialty, soft in the middle, slightly burnt around the edges, the kind she used to make when I was little. "Claire," she said with a breathy little smile, "we thought we'd stop by." I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the container in her hands like it might be booby-trapped. My dad shifted beside her. "Can we come in just for a minute?" "No," I said. There was a pause. Surprise maybe, but not long enough to matter. My mom tried to recover with another warm tone. "We just wanted to talk. Things got heated, but we're still your family." She offered the cookies like a peace treaty. I didn't take them. That's when the smile started to falter. "You don't have to be like this," she said, her voice tightening. "We know it's been hard raising a teenager." "Pushing everyone else away," my dad added. "We tried to be patient. We gave you space, but you're going to lose your real family over a girl who's going to leave in a few months." My stomach clenched. "She's 17, my mom said softly. "She'll go off to college soon. And then what? You'll be alone. You'll regret this." I could hear the words underneath the words. This wasn't about reconciling. This was about control. And then my mother said it, the thing I think she'd always believed deep down. "I'm sorry, Claire, but she's not blood. She's not really one of us." She said it gently, like she was doing me a favor, like she expected me to nod and say, "You're right." I lost my way. Instead, I took a deep breath, stepped back, and said, "You need to leave right now." My dad looked taken aback. "Claire, no," I said louder. "You don't get to come here with cookies and pity and act like this is kindness. You don't get to insult my daughter to my face and then wonder why I'm not inviting you in. You're going to regret this," my mom said again, her voice cracking now. "When she leaves you, when she forgets about you, you'll see. Our door will still be open. You'll come back. You'll realize we were right." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it until I couldn't hear their footsteps anymore. I told Maya the next day. I wasn't going to. I didn't want her to carry their poison, but I've never lied to her. Not about anything important. She sat very still while I told her what they said about her leaving, about not being blood, about me crawling back one day. She didn't cry, but I could see it in her hands, how tightly she clenched them in her lap, how her shoulders stiffened. "They really think I'll leave you?" she said. "No," I said. "They hope you will. That way I'll need them again." She nodded slowly. "They don't get to hope things about me," she said. I thought that would be the end of it. I should have known better, because a week later, my cousin Sarah forwarded me an email that Rachel had sent to the extended family. It was long, rambling, passive-aggressive in the way only Rachel could be. But the point was clear. She told them I had abandoned the family for a girl who manipulated her way into Claire's life and isolated her from everyone else. She implied Maya had been difficult, distant, and ungrateful, that my relationship with her was unhealthy, that I was obsessed with protecting her from imaginary slights. It was vile. And worse, it worked. People started reaching out. Aunt Linda texted me asking if I was okay. Uncle John called Ethan asking if I was having a breakdown. My second cousin Chloe left a comment on one of Maya's art posts. "You're very lucky. Don't forget who gave you a home." Maya saw it. I saw her see it. And that was the last straw. I didn't write a response. I wrote a dossier, screenshots, messages, photos, every ignored invitation, every exclusion, every receipt. I wrote a letter. Not emotional, not angry, just facts. I sent it to the extended family only once with the subject line, "For those who wanted the full story." I didn't ask for sides. I didn't demand apologies. I just gave them the truth. Some replied, some didn't. A few quietly unfriended Rachel. A few didn't believe a word I said. It didn't matter, because I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for Maya, so she'd never question whether she imagined it, so she'd never ask again, "Do you think they'd like me if I was blood?" After that, I blocked everyone who tried to argue. Everyone who said, "But maybe if you just talked it out." Everyone who thought keeping peace was more important than protecting a child from emotional abuse disguised as family tradition. We never heard from them again. Not directly. I'm sure they still talk about us. I'm sure I'm the story they tell at parties when someone brings up estranged children. I'm sure Maya's name is still spoken in tight, judgmental tones. Let them talk. They lost their right to know her. Fast forward. Maya's in college now. Art program, top of her class. She still calls me every night. Not out of obligation, just habit. She sends pictures of her sketches. Sometimes she asks for my opinion. Sometimes she just wants to say goodnight. When I dropped her off at her dorm, she hugged me for a full minute and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." She meant physically, maybe, but I knew what she really meant. People say you can't choose your family. I did. I chose her. Over blood, over guilt, over years of learned silence. And if they still think I'll come crawling back one day, let them wait. Sometimes I still think about that moment on the porch. My mother handing me those cookies like they could undo years of silence. Like sugar could fix what they never had the courage to say out loud. And sometimes late at night, I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have tried harder, stayed quieter, been more forgiving. But then I remember the look on Maya's face when I told her, "They don't get to treat you like that." I remember how tightly she hugged me when she left for college. I remember that I promised her something no one ever promised me growing up, that I'd choose her every time. Do you think I did the right thing? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.
All right, original tales for a story for you. In this one, it gets messy fast. Let's get into it.
My wealthy grandmother saw me and my 6-year-old daughter at a family shelter. She asked, "Why aren't you living in your house on Hawthorne Street?" I was stunned. What house? 3 days later, I arrived at a family event, and my parents went pale. If you've never tried to get a 6-year-old ready for school while living in a family shelter, I can summarize the experience for you. It's like running a small airport. Except the passengers are emotional, the security line is shame, and you're doing it all with one sock missing. That morning, Lila's sock was the one missing. "Mom," she whispered, the way kids do when they're trying to help you not fall apart. "It's okay. I can wear different socks." She held up one pink sock with a unicorn and one white sock that used to be white. I stared at them like they were evidence in a crime scene. "It's a bold fashion choice," I said. I do what I want." Lila smiled, and just like that, for half a second, I forgot where we were. Then the shelter door opened behind us, and the cold slapped me back into reality. We were outside St. Bridget Family Shelter, 6:12 a.m., the sky still a bruised gray. The sidewalk was damp. The air had that winter smell, metallic and clean, like the world had been scrubbed too hard. Lila adjusted her backpack, which was bigger than she was. I tugged the zipper up on her puffy coat and tried not to look at the sign above the entrance. Family shelter. It wasn't even the word shelter that got me. It was the word family. Like we were a category, like we were a label on a box. Okay, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. School bus in 5 minutes. Lila nodded. She was brave in a quiet way that made me feel both proud and guilty at the same time. Then she asked softly, "Do I still have to say my address when Mrs. Cole asks?" My stomach clenched. "I don't think she'll ask today," I said. Lila didn't push. She just looked down at her shoes and then back up at me like she was memorizing my face, like she was checking if I was still me. "Mom," she said, "are we going to move again?" I opened my mouth and nothing came out. And that's when a black sedan slid to the curb like it belonged there. Not a taxi, not an Uber, not the kind of car that ever pulled up to St. Bridget unless it took a wrong turn and regretted it. The door opened and a woman stepped out in a tailored coat the color of midnight. Evelyn Hart, my grandmother. I hadn't seen her in over a year. I knew that because my life had been measured in before everything fell apart and after. And she belonged firmly in before. She looked exactly the way she always did, composed, elegant, and slightly terrifying. Not in a cruel way, in an "I once ended a boardroom argument by raising one eyebrow" way. Her gaze landed on me first, and I saw recognition, then confusion. Then it landed on Lila. Something changed in her face, something quick and sharp, like a crack in glass. She looked up at the sign above the entrance, and then she looked back at me. "Maya," she said, and my name sounded strange in her voice, like she hadn't said it out loud in a long time. "What are you doing here?" My first instinct was to lie, not because I thought she'd judge me, because I couldn't stand being seen. "I'm fine," I said, which is the default lie of exhausted women everywhere. "We're okay. It's temporary." Evelyn's eyes flicked down to Lila's mismatched socks, and then to my hands, red and dry from too much sanitizer, too much cold, too much life. Her voice went quieter. "Maya," she said again, "why aren't you living in your house on Hawthorne Street?" The world tilted. I blinked at her. "My... what?" She didn't repeat herself like she thought I was stupid. She repeated herself like she thought I might faint. "The house," she said, enunciating the words. "On Hawthorne Street." My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What house?" I heard myself say. "I don't have a house." Evelyn stared at me as if I'd spoken in another language. I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She was running numbers in her head. Timelines. Possibilities. Lies. Lila tugged my sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "do we have a house?" I looked down at her. Her eyes were wide, hopeful in a way that hurt. I swallowed. "No, honey," I said gently. "We don't." Evelyn's face went very still. And when my grandmother went still, it usually meant something was about to break. She stepped closer, not to me, toward Lila. She crouched down in front of her, which was almost shocking. Evelyn Hart did not crouch for anyone. She sat in chairs that cost more than my monthly income and made everyone else adjust. But there she was, lowering herself to my daughter's height. "You're Lila, right?" she asked. "Yes," Lila whispered shyly. Evelyn's expression softened just slightly. "That's a beautiful name." Then her eyes lifted to mine and turned sharp again. "Get in the car," she said. I blinked. "Grandma, get in the car," she repeated, and there was no room in her tone for negotiation. I felt heat rush to my face. Anger, embarrassment, relief, everything tangled up. Evelyn opened the back door of the sedan. I hesitated. Lila looked up at me. "Mom," she said, small and steady. "It's okay." And the fact that my 6-year-old was comforting me was the final straw. I nodded. "Okay." Lila climbed into the back seat first, clutching her backpack, and I slid in beside her, still half expecting someone to tap me on the shoulder and tell me this was a misunderstanding. As soon as the door shut, the silence inside felt expensive. Evelyn didn't drive immediately. She just sat there with both hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Then she spoke, very calmly. "By tonight," she said, "I will know who did this." My stomach flipped. She turned her head to look at me. I swallowed hard. "Grandma, I don't understand." "No," she said, "you don't. And that tells me everything." She pulled out her phone, tapped once, and said, "Call Adam." A man answered quickly. "Ms. Hart." "This is Evelyn," she said. "Get the property manager for Hawthorne Street on the line. And I want a simple answer. Who has the keys, who is living there, and whether anyone has been collecting money off it." My blood ran cold. Money? I stared at her profile, at the set of her jaw, at the calm way she said those words like she was ordering coffee. And I realized I was not just embarrassed. I was standing on the edge of something much darker. If you'd asked me 6 months earlier if I thought I'd ever be living in a shelter with my daughter, I would have laughed. Not because I thought it couldn't happen, because I thought it couldn't happen to me. That's a dangerous kind of arrogance, by the way. It doesn't protect you. It just makes the fall louder. 6 months earlier, I was still working as a nursing assistant at St. Jude's Medical Center. 12-hour shifts, call lights going off like a slot machine, people asking me for things I didn't have. Time, answers, miracles. I was exhausted, but I was surviving. And then I moved in with my parents. It was supposed to be temporary. It always starts with temporary. My dad, Robert, had that calm, reasonable voice that people believe. My mom, Diane, had that soft smile that made her sound like she was doing you a favor, even when she was cutting you off at the knees. These days, I call them by their first names. Mom and Dad didn't fit anymore. "You can stay with us until you get back on your feet," Diane said. "Lila needs stability. Family supports family." I should have heard the fine print hiding in that sentence, but I didn't. At first, it was tolerable. My parents' apartment was small, but we made it work. Lila slept in my old room. I worked, I paid what I could, I kept my head down. Then the comments started. Not big, obvious attacks. Little ones. The kind that don't look like cruelty if you tell someone about them later. "You're always tired," Diane would say. "Maybe you should organize your life better." Robert would sigh when Lila's toys were on the floor. "We're just trying to keep the place nice." And then, one night, after I'd come home from a double shift with my feet aching and my brain half dead, Diane sat down at the kitchen table like she was about to deliver a diagnosis. "We need to talk," she said. I already knew that tone. "We think it's time you became independent," she said softly. "You've been here long enough." "I'm trying," I said, keeping my voice even. "Rents are high. Deposits—" "You're a mother," Diane said. "If you're a good mother, you'll figure it out." The words hit me so hard I actually looked around, like someone else must have said them. Robert cleared his throat. 30 days. That's reasonable. We're not monsters." I wanted to scream, but screaming never helped in that apartment. It just gave them something to point at later. So I nodded. "Okay." And I tried. I looked at listings during my breaks at the hospital, my thumbs scrolling while I gulped cafeteria coffee. I called places. I got told the same thing over and over. First and last month. Deposit. Proof of income. Credit check. Sorry, we chose another applicant. Every day I felt like I was running uphill with Lila on my back. And then came the night they decided 30 days was actually a suggestion. It was after a late shift. I'd helped a confused elderly man back into bed 3 times, cleaned up a spilled tray, and held a woman's hand while she cried because she was scared of surgery. I came home after midnight. The hallway light outside my parents' apartment was on. My stomach tightened immediately. 2 cardboard boxes sat outside the door. My boxes. I stared at them for a long second like my brain refused to accept the shape of what I was seeing. Then I tried the doorknob. Locked. I knocked. Silence. I knocked again. Harder. Finally, the door cracked open. Diane's face appeared, calm as if this was a normal Tuesday. "You need to keep your voice down," she whispered sharply. "Neighbors." "Why are my things outside?" I demanded. Robert's voice came from behind her, bored. "We told you, Maya. Independence." "It hasn't been 30 days, I said, my voice shaking. Diane's expression hardened just slightly. "Plans change." I glanced past her shoulder into the entryway. Lila was curled up on the floor right by the shoe rack, her little jacket folded under her head like a pillow, half asleep, shoes still on, like they'd put her there hours ago so I could scoop her up and disappear without waking the whole apartment. "Where are we supposed to go?" I hissed. Diane's smile came back, thin and satisfied. "You'll figure it out. You always do." And then, as if she were doing me a favor, she added, "Don't make a scene." I stood there with my boxes in the hallway, the air buzzing in my ears. I stepped inside just long enough to crouch and slide my arms under Lila. She made a tiny sleepy sound and automatically wrapped herself around my neck. As I backed out into the hall, Diane's hand was already on the door. The door closed. Lila stirred. "Mom?" she mumbled. "It's okay," I lied automatically. We're having a sleepover." I shoved the boxes into my car and drove. I don't remember most of that night. I remember streetlights. I remember the way my hands shook on the steering wheel. I remember sitting in the car with Lila asleep across the back seat, her small body curled like a question mark. I remember thinking over and over, how did this happen? The next day, I tried to fix it. Because that's what I do. I fix things. I wipe down messes. I lift people who can't lift themselves. I called Diane. She didn't answer. I called Robert. He answered once. "We're doing this because we love you," he said, like he was reading from a script. "Tough love." Then he hung up. I went to work anyway, because the rent I didn't have wasn't going to pay itself. By day 3, my cheeks were hollow from stress and my stomach hurt from cheap gas station food. I tried a motel. 1 night. 2. Then the money ran out. A school counselor noticed Lila was quiet, asked if everything was okay. I lied. Then the counselor asked again, gently, and I saw Lila watching me with those big eyes, learning from me how to lie to survive. So I told the truth. And 2 days later, I was filling out shelter intake forms while Lila sat beside me swinging her legs. The intake worker was kind but tired, like she'd seen too much. "We need your information," she said. "We need to know where you stayed last night." "In my car," I said. She nodded like she was checking a box. Lila leaned toward me and whispered too loudly, "Is this our house now?" The woman flinched. I smiled too hard. "No," I said quickly. "No, sweetheart." I wanted to add, "This is temporary," but the word tasted like a joke. That night, Lila fell asleep on a narrow bed beside me in a room that smelled like bleach and overcooked food. I lay awake listening to the sounds of other families behind thin walls, coughing, babies crying, someone whispering, "It's okay," over and over like a prayer. My phone sat in my hand. I thought about calling my grandmother. Evelyn Hart was not the kind of woman you called to cry. She was the kind of woman you called when you needed a problem solved. but my mother had spent years training me not to bother her. "Your grandmother hates drama," Diane always said. "She doesn't like weakness. Don't embarrass yourself." And when I texted Diane after the lockout, asking if Evelyn knew what was happening, Diane responded instantly. "Grandma is overseas. She's busy. Don't drag her into this." It was incredible how fast my mother could answer a text when she wanted something. So I didn't call. I told myself I'd handle it. I told myself I didn't want to look pathetic. I told myself a lot of things. And then, on a cold winter morning, my grandmother stepped out of a black sedan outside a shelter and asked me why I wasn't living in my house on Hawthorne Street. And I realized I didn't just have a housing problem. I had a family problem, and someone had been lying for a long time. Back in the sedan, Evelyn's call was already in progress. I didn't hear the other voice, only Evelyn's side, sharp enough to cut glass. "Who signed for the keys?" A beat. "And the house is occupied." My stomach dropped. Evelyn didn't react like someone surprised. She reacted like someone confirming what she'd already suspected. "Send the file to Adam," she said. "Everything." She ended the call and finally looked at me, not with pity, with certainty. I sent one text to Lila's school with thumbs that wouldn't stop shaking. "Family emergency. Lila won't be in today. No explanation, no essay. Just the truth in the smallest, least humiliating package I could manage." Evelyn drove to a diner 10 minutes away, the kind of place with warm windows, a bell on the door, and menus that smelled like syrup. Inside, the heater blasted my face so hard I almost cried from the shock of being warm. We slid into a booth. Lila immediately found the kids' menu and started coloring a cartoon pancake like it had personally insulted her. Evelyn ordered hot chocolate for Lila without asking. I watched her do it and felt a weird wave of anger. Not at Evelyn, at the universe, because it was that easy to be kind, and my parents had chosen everything else. Evelyn lifted her phone again. "Grandma," I started, then stopped, because I had no idea what I was even asking. "What house? Why are you here? How did my life become a shelter sign?" Evelyn didn't answer my questions in the order my panic wanted. She just said calmly, "I'm going to make another call. You'll listen, and you won't interrupt." I nodded. It was the kind of nod you give a surgeon when you're on the operating table. She tapped the screen and put the phone on speaker. 1 ring, 2, then my mother's voice, Diane, bright and sweet, like she was auditioning for the role of loving parent in a community theater production. "Evelyn! Oh my goodness! What a surprise! How are you?" Evelyn's tone stayed pleasant, almost gentle. "I was thinking about Maya," she said. "How is she doing?" I felt my stomach drop into my shoes. There was a microsecond of silence, the tiniest pause where a liar decides which version of reality is most useful. Then Diane answered smoothly, confidently, like she'd been practicing the sentence in front of a mirror. "Oh, she's doing great," she said. "She's living in the house. She's settled. She loves it. You know Maya. She wanted space, so we didn't bother you." I stared at the sticky table as if it might open up and swallow me whole. Across from me, Lila colored quietly, humming to herself. She didn't understand the words, but she understood tone. She glanced up once, saw my face, and went right back to coloring harder. Like she could scribble the problem away. Diane kept talking, filling the silence with cheerful nonsense. How busy she'd been, how proud she was, how family is everything. Evelyn let her. Evelyn didn't rush liars. She gave them room to hang themselves properly. Finally, Evelyn said, "That's good to hear," and ended the call. Just like that. No confrontation, no accusation, no gotcha. My throat tightened. That, Evelyn said quietly. Wasn't confusion. I let out a laugh that sounded like a cough. So she knew, I said. She knew the whole time. Evelyn's eyes stayed on mine, steady and sharp. She knew enough to lie without thinking, she said. That tells me what I need to know. Lila slid her coloring page toward me. Mom, look. I made the pancake purple. I forced a smile so quickly it probably looked painful. Wow, I said. That pancake is incredibly brave. Lila giggled, and for half a second my chest unclenched. Then Evelyn leaned in, lowered her voice, and said the simple sentence I should have heard months ago. I arranged a house for you, she said, on Hawthorne Street. Your parents were supposed to manage the handoff. Keys, move in, all of it. They told me it was done. My brain tried to process it. A house. For us. And my parents had been living their lives like that sentence didn't exist. I gripped the edge of the booth until my knuckles went white. Why wouldn't you tell me directly? I heard myself ask, and immediately felt stupid, like I was blaming the only person who'd shown up. Evelyn didn't flinch. Because I trusted your parents, she said, which was my mistake, not yours. Then she stood up, walked a few steps away so Lila couldn't hear, and made 2 quick calls. Low voice, clipped, efficient. I only caught pieces. Hawthorne file. Clean summary. Key log. Listing history. Tenant payments? Yes. Today. When she came back, she didn't sit down like she planned to linger. She sat down like she planned to move. You're not going back to that shelter, she said. My pride tried to stand up and argue. My exhaustion shoved it back down. Okay, I whispered, which was the most honest word I'd said all day. An hour later, Lila was bouncing on a hotel bed like it was a trampoline, and the world had never been cruel. She found the little complimentary soap, sniffed it dramatically, and announced it smelled like a fancy grandma. Evelyn stood by the window, phone in hand, watching traffic like she was watching a battlefield. She didn't tell me everything. She didn't have to. The point wasn't details yet. The point was that something was happening. Something I didn't have to carry alone. That night, after Lila fell asleep in clean sheets with her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin, Evelyn sat at the small table by the window and finally spoke again. Your parents are hosting an event, she said. Important to them. A venue, relatives, speeches, the whole performance. My stomach tightened. When? Evelyn's gaze stayed on the city lights. Soon, she said. And we'll be there. She didn't say it like a threat. She said it like a decision already made. 3 days later, I stood in the hotel bathroom staring at myself in the mirror. I looked like a version of me that had been put through a washer cycle and hung up to dry in a storm. Evelyn had insisted I buy a dress. Not an expensive one. Just a clean one. A simple one. You don't need armor, she'd said. You need dignity. I wasn't sure dignity came in polyester, but I appreciated the sentiment. Lila wore a little blue dress and tights. She twirled once in the hotel room and said, I look like a princess. You do, I said, and my throat tightened. On the ride over, my stomach twisted so hard I thought I might vomit. What if I freeze? I asked quietly. Evelyn didn't look at me. Then I'll speak. What if they deny everything? They will, Evelyn said. What if everyone thinks I'm... I stopped, because I didn't even have a word for it. Evelyn glanced at me then, her gaze sharp but steady. Maya, she said, you've survived worse than a room full of liars. The car pulled up outside a venue I'd never have picked in my life, one of those hotel event spaces with soft lighting and hard smiles. The sign by the entrance read, Hart Collins Family Dinner. Of course it did. My mother loved an event. Not because she liked people, because she liked witnesses. Inside, there were relatives I hadn't seen in months. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people with opinions and casseroles, except the casseroles had been replaced by catered hors d'oeuvres served on trays like tiny edible bribes. At the far end of the room, there was a projector screen set up and a microphone. Because my mother couldn't serve dinner without also serving a narrative. Before we went in, Evelyn stopped at a side door and spoke briefly to a staff member. A woman nodded and opened a small private room next to the banquet hall. Quiet, warm, stocked with water bottles and crackers. "This is for Lila," Evelyn said. "She doesn't need to be in the center of this." Lila took one cautious step into the room, then looked up at Evelyn seriously. "Do I get snacks?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Good ones." Lila accepted that like it was legally binding. A trusted assistant stayed with her. Lila waved at me, completely unaware she was being protected from the family apocalypse. Then Evelyn looked at me. "You go in first," she said. I knew what she was doing. Let them see me before they saw her. Let them panic in silence. I walked into the banquet room alone. The chatter softened, then resumed, the way people do when they sense something but don't want to be the first to acknowledge it. Then Diane saw me. Her smile appeared automatically, then glitched, like a bad Wi-Fi connection. Her eyes flicked over my dress, my posture, the fact that I wasn't wearing "I'm drowning" on my face anymore. Her hands tightened slightly around her wine glass. Robert noticed a second later. His laugh died halfway through. His jaw clenched like he was biting down on a thought. Neither of them moved toward me. They didn't ask where I'd been. They didn't ask how Lila was. They did what people do when they're trying to calculate danger. They smiled and waited. I stood near the edge of the room and let the silence do its work. Dry humor is sometimes the only thing that keeps you from screaming, so I let myself have one thought. Look at us. A family dinner. The kind where everyone pretends the most important thing is the seating arrangement. A minute later, the room temperature changed. Evelyn Hart entered. Calm. Unhurried. Completely in control. Beside her was a man with a slim folder and a laptop bag, the kind of person who looked like he'd never raised his voice in his life because he didn't need to. Diane went pale. Not, "Oh, you surprised me," pale. More like, "I just realized my entire plan has a hole in it," pale. Robert straightened his shoulders, the way he did when he wanted to look like the victim before anyone had accused him of anything. Evelyn nodded to a few relatives like she was simply attending dinner. Then she looked at my mother. "Diane," Evelyn said lightly, "before we eat, I'd like to clear up something you told me." My mother's smile tightened. "Of course, Mom." Evelyn's voice stayed calm. "You told me Maya was living in the house on Hawthorne Street," she said. The room quieted, not because everyone suddenly cared about Hawthorne Street, but because everyone suddenly cared about Diane's face. Diane's eyes darted. She set her glass down as if it had become heavy. "Well," she said, laughing too fast. "Yes, she—" Evelyn held up a hand. "Let's not do this with guessing," Evelyn said. "Let's do it with facts." She nodded to the man with the laptop. He stepped forward and plugged into the venue's projector like he'd done it 1,000 times. The first slide appeared, Hawthorne Street. Summary. A murmur ran through the room. Diane's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Evelyn didn't speak like she was giving a courtroom speech. She spoke like she was reading the weather. "This house was arranged for Maya and Lila," she said, and the screen showed a simple line to match. Next slide. Keys released to Diane Hart Collins. July. Evelyn let that sit for half a second. Then another slide. A listing screenshot. The Hawthorne house marketed as a furnished rental. Photos of the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom. People leaned forward. Diane's hands started to shake. Next, a lease summary. Names blurred, dates visible. Tenants moved in. August. And then the slide that made the room go dead quiet. A payment instruction page from the property manager file. Rent payout account, provided by Diane and Robert. Evelyn's voice didn't rise. "Diane," she said, "you didn't just take the keys." She looked around the room, making sure everyone heard. "You rented out the home meant for my granddaughter and my great-granddaughter, and you had the rent sent to an account you controlled." Robert snapped first, loud, trying to take back the room. "This is inappropriate," he barked. "This is a family event." Evelyn turned her gaze to him. "Yes," she said. "That's why I'm doing it here." Diane found her voice, thin and frantic. "We were going to tell her," she said quickly. "It was temporary. We needed—" "Temporary," Evelyn repeated. Her eyes flicked toward the side room where Lila was, unseen but present. "You displaced a child," Evelyn said, and the room went still. She paused, just long enough, then finished the sentence. "For profit." Someone gasped. Someone whispered, "You've got to be kidding." Diane started crying, real tears this time. "We had debts," she sobbed. "You don't understand." Evelyn's expression didn't change. "I understand enough," she said. "And I'm done funding your choices." She turned slightly so everyone could hear and said simply, "Starting now, Diane and Robert receive nothing from me. No more help. No more transfers. No inheritance." Robert's face twisted. "You can't—" "I can," Evelyn said. "And I already did." The man with the folder stepped forward, calm. "Diane Collins, Robert Collins," he said politely. "These documents are for you." A uniformed officer stood nearby, not dramatic, not aggressive, just present, because Evelyn didn't gamble with scenes like this. Diane stared at the papers like they were radioactive. Robert took them with shaking hands, then looked around the room and finally understood the worst part. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a reputation collapsing in public. Evelyn's voice stayed level. "You will not contact Maya," she said. "You will cooperate, and you will answer for what you did." Diane turned to me then, eyes wild. "Maya," she begged. "Tell her to stop. We're family." Something inside me went cold and clear. "You should have remembered that," I said quietly, "before you made a business out of my daughter's home." Diane's face crumpled. I didn't feel joy exactly. I felt relief. Relief that the truth was finally out loud. Relief that I wasn't crazy. Relief that Lila would never have to learn how to smile through humiliation the way I had. I didn't stay for the aftermath. I walked out of the banquet room, down the hallway, and opened the door to the private room. Lila looked up, cheeks full of crackers. "Mom, are we done?" I crouched and hugged her so tight she squeaked. "Yeah," I whispered. "We're done." She leaned back and looked at my face carefully, like she was checking for storms. Then she asked softly, "Can we go home?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said. "We can." Evelyn met us in the hallway. She didn't look back at the room. She didn't need to. In the car, Lila leaned against my shoulder and fell asleep. I stared out the window, hands trembling. "Grandma," I whispered, "what happens now?" Evelyn didn't take her eyes off the road. "Now," she said, "we take back what was meant for you. 6 months later, our life is boring in the best way. We live on Hawthorne Street now. Lila has her own room, her own curtains, and a crooked art gallery of drawings taped to the wall. She walks to school like the world has always been safe. That's the point. I'm still a nursing assistant. By choice, not because I'm stuck. I'm finishing my RN track one step at a time, and for the first time, my energy goes into the future instead of survival. Evelyn never paid for my life. She showed up when it mattered most, and she made sure no one could ever intercept help again. Sunday mornings, she visits with pastries and pretends she's only here to see Lila. Lila doesn't buy it. "Grandma Evelyn," she'll ask, "do you like our house?" Evelyn always pauses like she's swallowing something heavy. Then she says, "Yes, I do." As for Diane and Robert, turns out you can't rent out someone else's home, collect the money, and keep calling it family. The rent they took didn't stay free. They were forced to repay it, and the investigation that followed made their respectable image evaporate. Once Evelyn cut them off, their hidden debts showed up like roaches under a flipped light switch. People stopped inviting them. Calls stopped getting answered. My mother tried to contact me. Not to apologize, to negotiate. I blocked the number because I'm done bargaining for basic decency. So what do you think? Did Evelyn do the right thing, or did she go too far? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.